What's up, guys? Welcome to the LeftLane Podcast, where we're going to talk all things MMA and just go over the current scene of the UFC, talk some key issues, and then I'll be answering some questions that you guys have asked. So we're going to be going through all of that in today's video. But just starting off with yesterday's card, UFC 290, the best card of the year in my opinion. Best card of the year by far, one of the best cards of all time, probably the best card I've seen live of all time as well, personally. It just had everything, to be honest. Like, if you look at the card, like, we had a perfect retirement for Robbie Lawler, 9 finishes, 5 in the first round, a bunch of upsets, a new champion in Alexandre Pantoja, 2 massive, like, fight of the year candidates, Hooker versus Turner, and then Pantoja versus Moreno as well. Some crazy fights there. What else? We had DDP beating Robert Whittaker, facing off with Izzy. That was pretty crazy. Massive upset there. As I said, Lawler. Volkanovski rounded it off with an amazing performance. And even the prelims were great as well. Like a 17-second KO for Jesus Aguilar, 20-second KO for Denise Gomes. On the main card, Bo Nickel got a 38-second finish as well. TKO showed his striking, which was very impressive. But just overall, the card was just super fun. Definitely let me know if you what cards you think would have been better than this. But I think it's pretty much unanimous that this is the best card of the year so far, and I can say pretty confidently if this ends up being not the best card of the year, then we must have had a pretty good card in the coming months. But I just wanted to also talk about just Volkanovski, Alexander Volkanovski. How good is this guy? Um, he's really just starting to build his legacy more and more and really just cement his place as not just arguably the greatest featherweight of all time, but he's pushing into that top 10, top 7 of just the greatest of all time category. And I think if he beats like one more or two more featherweights, like if he beats Ilia Topuria and then like Aljamain Sterling moving up from bantamweight, I think he's clearly the greatest featherweight of all time. And I think now you've got to start mentioning him top 5, top 4 greatest of all time. I think if he were to beat Ilia Topuria later this year and then beat like Aljamain Sterling next year or vice versa, whichever order that happens in, I think he's greater than. It's clear he's already greater than Khabib. He's greater than Aldo. He's greater than Anderson Silva, in my opinion. That's open to debate. I think the only 3 guys that you can really have ahead of him is Jones, GSP, and Demetrius Johnson. I think everyone else is surpassed because if he gets 2 more title wins at featherweight, that would be 7 title defenses. So that's tied with Aldo, but the level of competition is just so much higher. Like, if you look at his wins, before the belt, he beat Mendes and Aldo to get to a title, beat Holloway in the rematch as well, beat Ortega, beat Zombie, beat Holloway again, moved up to lightweight and almost won the lightweight belt, went back down, and then just smoked Yair, who was meant to be the guy that was going to give him his toughest test and be the most dangerous fighter that he's ever fought. So I think it's really starting to talk about forget the GOAT conversation, the featherweight GOAT conversation. Forget talking about whether he's greater than Jose Aldo. I don't think that matters. I think overall, he is greater than Jose Aldo overall. I think in terms of just featherweight legacy, I think you could still probably have Aldo ahead of him. He's had more title wins, more like he fought in the WEC as well, so you kind of got to take that into account. But when you're just looking at like the performances as well, like finished Zombie, finished Yair, and then put absolute beatings on Ortega, Holloway twice. The second fight was close, but 2 beatings on Holloway, Ortega, Yair as well. Like the guys he's just dominating and beating is just so impressive. 30-27 Jose Aldo, TKO Chad Mendes to get to the belt in the second round. Like it's really time to start talking about Volk in that conversation because right now I think the guys you have ahead of him on the greatest of all time list, and this is open to discussion. You've got Jones ahead of him, you've got GSP ahead of him, you've got DJ ahead of him, you've got Anderson, you've got Jose Aldo arguably, and I'm kind of trying to think who else. I might be forgetting someone. Like I think he's ahead of Cejudo. He's ahead of DC in my opinion. He's ahead of Stipe. Um, Ahead of Khabib. I know all the Khabib fucking nut huggers are gonna get pissed off at me for that, but Khabib's got 3 title defenses and won the belt off Ally Quinta. I don't want to hear it. I don't care about dominance when you're only have 3 title defenses, and Volks were way better. Who else is there? Like, he's greater than Usman, greater than Izzy, um, greater than all those older champions and stuff as well. Like Matt Hughes, Sarah, all those guys. Fuck off, they don't matter. Um, I'm just trying to think. Let me know if I'm missing someone. Like greater than, I can't even think of anyone else. Cruz is better than TJ. All those bantamweight champions, they don't have anything. I think you're looking at just the long reigning guys like Demetrius Johnson with the 11 defenses, Anderson Silva, John Jones, and GSP. I think those are the four, and then Jose Aldo. I think right now, for me at least, Volkanovski, number 6 or 7 greatest of all time. I think that's not that unreasonable to say. But anyway, that's that out of the way. I also wanted to talk about the flyweight division too. It was an amazing back and forth war. Yesterday with Moreno and Pantoja, the trilogy or the second fight, whichever one you want to go with. Absolute back and forth war. Pantoja won a split decision. It shouldn't have been a split decision in my opinion. The judge that gave that to Moreno, absolutely ridiculous. 4 rounds to 1 is horrendous scoring. Um, but I just like the state of the flyweight division. What's next? What do we think is next for flyweight? Because these guys have now fought 3 times total, twice officially. Pantoja's won both of them. Moreno hasn't been a long reigning champion. If you remember him, drew with Figgy, beat Figgy, lost to Figgy, um, beat Kai, for the interim belt, beat Figgy, so he has no defenses of his title. He has not defended the flyweight title. So I personally don't like the idea of a rematch. I don't think an immediate rematch is something that you go with here. I could see them doing it, and Dana said, "Well, the fight was great." It's the same thing with Figgy and Moreno. Like they just did it over and over again because the fight was so good every time. Um, but I don't think you need a rematch. But again, if you're looking at Pantoja, obviously both of them going to be taking a while off. Don't expect to see like back latest December. I wouldn't expect to see them back before then. Both took a lot of damage. So and on schedule wise though, like I could see them doing like El Bazi, even though he's literally coming off a robbery win over Kaikara France, and that's his only win in the top 10. Um, but he doesn't deserve it, but I could see them rushing Pantoja into a defense of his title in Abu Dhabi because just to do Amir Al Bazi in Abu Dhabi because I know they're gonna want another guy over there. And if they don't have the strongest title fight, because we know Islam Makhachev might not be fighting Charles, might not even be fighting Volk, so that he might end up just with like a not as intriguing matchup. So if they're going to have that on there, they're going to want another title fight in Abu Dhabi, and with a Amir Abbas is like Iranian, I believe. So he's Muslim too, so they want that. They want to get that community over there, that fan base. Um, so I could see them doing Pantoja versus El Bazi. Royval was the backup for this fight, and normally being a backup for a fight means that you get to get the next title shot if you're backup for a title fight. But Royval did lose to Pantoja just a couple fights ago because it was the Perez fight, and then before that, I think there was one other one, and then it was Royval because he submitted him in the second round. Um, so I don't know if they would go with that, but Royval's on a bit of a streak too. Like KOed Nicolau, beat who did he beat? He had another win back in I think he's beat Perez. Like he's beat some good opponents. So he could get a title shot, or if they are going to end up just doing another fight between Moreno and Pantoja, I say you do El Bazi versus Royval in Abu Dhabi, um, as like a as a like feature fight or main card opener, and label that as like a number one contender. If they really wanted to push it and they really wanted to just glorify that fight, they could do an interim title, which would be kind of bullshit. But they could do it if they just wanted to add a little bit of like spice onto that card. That would be kind of dumb, but that might happen. Um, but yeah, that was just something worth talking about who you think is going to be next for Pantoja as well. I personally want to see I really don't know what I want to see, to be honest, because on one hand, I love the Moreno fight again because it was a sick fight and it was fight of the year so far. But at what point does it just not get the same intrigue if the guys just keep fighting over and over again? So think that's something to think about. I don't mind Royval because I'm a big Pantoja fan, and I think Royval wouldn't beat Pantoja. I think Pantoja would submit him. He's just shown he's like above the level of Brandon Moreno. And I think Brandon Moreno was seen to be like that guy that was just better than everyone else. Like Royval, he's had losses and stuff, lost to Pantoja, so it is a bit of a like iffy kind of thing. But again, like Pantoja fought Moreno, and Moreno was the guy that had lost to Pantoja, so maybe it's a different scenario when the champions already beat you, but it wasn't for the belt, so you could do that again. And I think it was back in like 2020, so it's not like it was like one fight ago. Um, but anyway, that was worth talking about. And then obviously we saw yesterday, with the big win for Dricus Du Plessis against Robert Whitaker. Very unexpected for most people. I did not expect him to win at all. I thought Robert Whitaker was going to just outclass him for 3 rounds. But he proved me wrong. He proved everyone else wrong because I don't think there was a single person that actually was genuinely picking Dricus Du Plessis. I think if you watched that, like going into that fight, you're looking at the tape. I think you're kind of thinking, like, if you're picking Dricus, you're kind of riding the meme and you're having some fun with it, and you don't actually think he's going to win. But he ended up winning, and it was very impressive to see. Um, and then obviously him and Izzy stared off in the cage afterwards. Izzy was just running his mouth, making a fool of himself, in my opinion. I didn't like it, all the things he was saying. I don't care that he's like dropping N words and shit like that. Doesn't bother me. Like that's not my place to get annoyed about that. If Dricus takes offense or issue to that, then he can, I guess. But it's less about that, and more just like, um, Dricus has just had the biggest win of his career. He's just beat the second best middleweight in the world, the guy that you took to a razor close decision, which a lot of people thought you lost in your last fight, and he just TKO'd him in the second round quicker than you did when you won the title. And then you come into the cage, you're like, I manifested this. This was my fucking doing. I manifested this. It's like, shut up. And he come into the cage, saying all this shit, like my African brother, like he's being sarcastic there. That's okay. I don't really care about that. He said like the N word like 12 fucking times. Like it was just excessive to be honest, and it was just cringe. Like the fact that he just kept saying that over and over and over again. Like you can say it like once or twice, but like why do you need to just keep saying that? Like that's all he had. He was just like saying my African brother. It's like oh my god, it's just odd. Um, but then Joe was asking Drickus about the fight. It's like, what do you think about this fight? And Izzy's like takes the mic. He's like, easy money. It's easy money fight. I manifested this. This is my moment. It's like shut up. It's not your fucking moment, you dickhead. Like you didn't fucking just TKO Robert Whitaker in this in the second round. You've done it before in your career. He did it faster. Stop saying you manifested this. You didn't fucking manifest it. You wanted it to happen and it did, but you didn't fucking cause Dricus Du Plessis. You didn't throw the fucking right hand that knocked Robert Whitaker down, and you didn't chase down Robert Whitaker and swarm him with shots and body shots and put him away in the second round. That wasn't you. That was fucking Dricus Du Plessis. So I just wasn't a big fan of what Izzy was doing there. But we've got a big fight on our hands now. Could be happening in Sydney. I imagine they want Izzy on that Sydney card because it appears to be a pay per view, and tickets are going on sale at the end of July. So they're gonna want to get an announcement for that soon. So I imagine it will be that. If Lucas needs to heal up a little bit, I could see them just going Strickland, fucking have a shot, mate. Who cares? Just tuck Strickland in there. Strickland will lose, then just do Dricus at the end of the year. Izzy won't take damage from John Strickland, and then you can just chuck that in December, and then we're good. Um, but if it does happen in Sydney, that's great. I'm going to go to that event too, so I'll be more than excited to see it. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about Izzy there because he really made a fool of himself, and Dricus said it as well. He said, "You're the champion of the world, and you're conducting yourself like a child." And Dricus clearly won that exchange. Anyone who thinks Izzy won that exchange, you're kind of delusional, and you're just an Izzy nut hugger because Izzy just made himself look like an idiot, didn't say anything good. Izzy's like always been like one of the worst guys on the mic. He says the dumbest shit. It's like I don't need a 36 and me to tell me where I'm from. It'll tell me I'm from Nigeria. It's like okay, cool. It's not even a 36 and me. He said 36 and me, then he said 26 and me, then he said 23 and me. Like what the fuck are you doing? Get your words straight. He was just drunk, so okay, fair enough. But yeah, he just made a fool of himself and just looked really dumb. And then Drickus just didn't get bothered by it. Drickus said, I might be African, but I'm no brother of yours. Like, that was a good line from him. He had the only good, notable line of that entire exchange. Nothing as he said was like slick or cool or like, wow, you got the better of him there. He's just saying the same shit that he's already said. And Drickus is just going to get painted in this fucking like racist narrative, which is so bullshit. Because if you look at, okay, I know what he said isn't like great, and it was kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit. But nowhere did he said that Izzy was not African. Nowhere did he said that he was more African than Izzy. And all these dumb fucking journalists keep bringing in this shit and saying Dricker said he was the more African fighter. Dricker said because he trains in Africa, he's more African than you. Literally never said that. All Dricker said, word for word, was, I want to be the first fighter training out of Africa, fighting out of Africa to win a belt. That's all he said. And what's wrong with that? Because that's factually correct. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Izzy moving to New Zealand and training there. That's fine. That's his thing. Like, he's in New Zealand now, and he's obviously still Nigerian. Like, no one said otherwise, but they're all just taking it, like they're all just using what they thought he said, or what they um like they realize what he said isn't actually that bad and it's factually correct. And Izzy and Usman both got kind of like felt attacked by it because they both kind of know, they're like, hang on, yeah, we were both born in Nigeria and then we do train in New Zealand or America for Usman. So maybe he's right. And then they feel really attacked. So then they switch the narrative and say, you said we weren't African, which is just not what he said. And also bringing race into it and all that shit, like, that's just unnecessary. Again, Drick has never brought race into it. And I've never been like a massive Drickers fan, and I'm not an Izzy fan either. Um, and it's not like I'm massively rooting for Drickers, but like after seeing all this and after seeing how Izzy's just being annoying and just shitty about the whole situation, I'll definitely be rooting for Drickers to knock him out because I think Izzy deserves it with the way he's behaving. Um, but anyway, that's just that. But I wanted to talk about obviously Jalen Turner and Dan Hooker as well. Fantastic fight. It was the fight of the night before Moreno Pantoja. Dan Hooker came out, lost the first round, was losing the second round, got head kicked clean and just took it. His chin is still there somehow after that Poirier war. It was amazing to see, and then beat Jalen Turner by 29-28 decision. One of the judges scored the third round for fucking Jalen Turner, which was ridiculous. But less so about the fight, and I also just wanted to talk about um, just the lightweight division in general and the levels. The levels of the lightweight division, I think, is a big talking point. Because you look at that fight, you look at fights like Fiziev versus Gaethje, you look at guys like Guram and Demir Ismagulov, and Gamrot versus Dariush, um, Sayukian. Like, pump the brakes on lightweight prospects. You are not a like lightweight prospects do not mean anything until you're like in the top five. You cannot confidently say anyone could become a champion until they've literally beaten the top five guy. Because so far, none of them have. Gamrot failed. Like, and there's different levels of it. Like Guram, I want to talk about Guram Kutateladze. He fought last week against Elves Brenner and got TKO'd in the third round. He's that level, that top 15 level, and he just lost to Elves Brenner, who arguably lost the decision to Zubaira Tukurov. Um, so that from him was like worrying to see, and the fact that people were saying that he's a possible next champion, and that he or not next champion, but like he's a top contender, he could beat like guys like Fiziev. I heard people saying Guram would beat Fiziev, and then like pump the brakes. Okay, he had two close fights with Gamrot and Demir, both of which have now just been kind of exposed. Gamrot's been exposed for not being able to take down anyone with like wrestling. Dariush couldn't take him down, or have any success. And Dariush just got that's what I'm talking about, the levels. Guram got exposed to not be in that top 15 level. I'm not saying he cannot get to the top 15 level, but he's not there right now. He's clearly not in the top 10 level. And then on the same card, Demir fought Grant Dawson, who was the number 15 ranked guy. Demir was like number 12. Got back controlled and showed no takedown defense or no grappling skill in that fight. He's clearly exposed to not be that top 10 level. So that just means you've got two guys, and people were taking Guram's fight with Demir and saying he had a super close fight with Demir. He's clearly top 15, top 10 level. We've just been shown that Demir's got like really weaknesses in his grappling. He got exposed by Arman and then got dominated by Grant Dawson. And then you move up just a little bit. Then you go to the top 10 level and you go with like Jalen Turner against Gamrot, or Jalen Turner against Dan Hooker. More so Dan Hooker, I believe, because if you look at the Gamrot fight, you're like, he arguably won, landed the better strikes. Gamrot just shot takedowns the whole time. But then in this Dan Hooker fight, that was more in the grappling where he got exposed. That's okay. But then here in Dan Hooker fight, lost on the feet. There was like no grappling in this fight. He lost the whole fight on the feet to Dan Hooker, who everyone was saying was washed. And I don't want to hear that like Jalen Turner's shit. He lost to a washed Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's not washed. That's pretty clear now after watching that fight. Um, but then on that fight, then you go to the next level. Then you go with like Fiziev and Gaethje, and then also Gamrot versus Dariush. Those are the two similar kind of levels. And you both see both Fiziev couldn't strike with Gaethje over 15 minutes, got outstruck and out damaged, and then Dariush couldn't really go in the grappling with Gamrot couldn't go in the grappling with Dariush over 15 minutes, and just got outstruck and dropped. And then you go to that very, very high level. It goes so like there's so many just levels that are like two ranks. Like the levels of the lightweight division is like number 1 and 2 Islam and Charles, number 2 and 3 Dustin and Justin, number like 3 and 4. Let me just get the lightweight rankings here. Um, like you've got number 1 and 2 Charles, number 1 and 2 Charles, 2 and 3 Dustin and Justin, um 3 and 4 Chandler and Benil, and then Fiziev and Gamrot are in their little group there with Sayukin. I think Fiziev, Gamrot, and Sayukin are a little group here. I'm taking out RDA because he's at welterweight now. Then you got like Dawson, Hooker, Turner. Then you got Moicano, Ismagulov, Frivola, Guram outside, progressively going outside the rankings. So there's just so many levels. Unlike with like, let's say the light heavyweight division, where like um Johnny Walker or like Nikita Krylov is like number 6 and could probably beat like Ankalaev, or maybe not Ankalaev, but could probably beat like Jamal Hill or something right now. You don't have that at lightweight. Lightweight is just so stacked in terms of and just different levels of talent that you see the guys that everyone thinks are the old guard and the washed ones like Dustin and Justin and Oliveira and stuff, and then Oliveira as well with Dariush. That's that top level. Like that's the number 2 or number 1 ranked guy if you take out Islam and put him as the champ. Number 2 ranked guy versus the number 4 ranked guy, and it got shown to be like leaps apart. So you really got to kind of look at the lightweight division. Just pump the brakes when you're talking about prospects. You cannot be calling the 10th ranked guy a future champion. He's got to prove it. And then Armin as well had trouble with Yoko and Silva, unranked guy. So, like, pump the brakes with lightweights. And when you're climbing the lightweight division, you're going, like, one spot at a time, 1 or 2 spots at a time. Like, I'm talking, let's just theoretically say Frivola is, like, some prospect. He's not, but let's say he is. Let's say he fights like Moicano, that's 2 spots up. Then he fights Hooker, that's another spots up. Then he fights RDA, that's another 2 spots up. Like you can't go from number 15 to number 6 to number 1. Doesn't happen, you get smoked. Um, so you really got to just pump the brakes at lightweight and just really chill on prospects and stop calling the top guys washed and then saying that these guys aren't good. The lightweight is the second or third most skilled division in the sport right now, and the most difficult division to go on a lengthy run as well. We saw Benil 8-fight run, bam, lost to Charles, gone, all done. Ferguson lost, not quite the same thing, but again, um, but that's that on the lightweight division. I think that's just something that everyone needs to talk about. Stop calling the top guys washed. Stop calling guys that beat prospects washed and then say they're good and then say maybe we just needed to chill on calling this guy the next fucking champ. But anyway, that's just my opinion on that. I wanted to also talk about the bantamweight division too. We've got some big upcoming fights at bantamweight. You've got Umar versus Corey Sandhagen in August 5th. That's been unofficially named as the number 1 contenders fight and the next person to fight for a belt. But um, then you also have on August 19th, you've got some big bantamweight matchups. You got Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley. And then after that fight, Aljamain Sterling says he's gone. He's up to featherweight and he's not coming back. On that card, you also got Chito Vera versus Pedro Munoz. So that's what's that? Vera is number 5 or 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Vera's number 6, and then Munoz is like number 10. So you've got number 6 versus 10. You've got Champ versus number 2. And then you've also got Font versus Song Yilong, which is like number 6 versus 7 or 7 versus 8. So you got some big bantamweight matchups coming up. And you got obviously Corey versus Umar, which is like number 3 versus number 11. So big matchups coming up. But then with Sterling saying he's retiring, I just wanted to kind of figure out if he wins, what's next? If Sterling wins and goes up, then one contender, I guess it's the winner of the winner of Corey versus Umar versus Marab for a vacant belt later in the year. I think that's what you're probably looking at. And then after that, I just want to see kind of because that can really free up the division and make fights. Because then Cejudo's taking some time off, Yarn's taking some time off, but like everyone else is booked. Cruz as well is fighting Figueiredo in September, so that's another big matchup. So if you look at this top of the division right now, Aljo's booked, Marab's injured, waiting out, fighting for the vacant belt when Aljo leaves. Sean's booked, Cejudo's injured, Corey's booked, Yarn's injured, you're taking time off. Vera's booked, Font's booked, Song's booked, Cruz is booked, Munoz is booked, and Umar's booked. So the bantamweight division is pretty much all booked, and it's going to start to look a lot clearer right now. And it's really exciting to see. I think I'm high on Song Yadong. I think he's going to make it pretty far in the division. Only 25 or 26 years of age. I think he's got real promise. But I think matchmaking wise, moving forward, if Aljo loses, okay, let's just say this. So if Aljo wins, um, Marab, if Aljo wins, Umar fights Corey Sandhagen and wins. You do Marab versus Umar for the vacant belt, probably just in Abu Dhabi, to be honest. Might as well do that. Um, and then you do O'Malley versus Corey Sandhagen. Um, then the winner of Vera versus Munoz, if it's Vera, fights the winner of Font versus Song, it'll be Song. So you do that rematch, and then the winner of that's looking at like a top. So you can really kind of figure that out with the bantamweight division. And after August 19th, we're gonna know a lot more about what the next fights to make are and who's next up in the bantamweight division. But let's talk the rest of the year though. The rest of the year in the UFC, the rest of 2023. Um, we've got some upcoming. Dana said he's going to make some more fight announcements soon. He usually tends to announce the rest of the year, the big main events later after International Fight Week. We've got up to August official, and then we've also skip ahead. We've got Jones versus Stipe in November. If you're looking at title fights that still need to be made, we're probably getting a vacant title fight at bantamweight if Aljo wins later in the year. We're getting Edwards versus Usman either in Abu Dhabi or at MSG. I feel like it's going to be MSG. Um, maybe Pantoja's first title defense later in the year or early 2024. You've got, and also said he's making an announcement for Yair, so that should be Yair versus Hill. I imagine that'll be either December or November. Maybe October, but I doubt it. And then Connor still seems to say he's fighting in December. Don't know what he's doing. And then you've got some big fight nights too. So, and then Izzy versus Dricus, or Izzy versus Sean, and then Izzy versus Dricus later in the year. So we've got a fuck ton of title fights, and not that many cards to put them on. That's what we're kind of figuring out here. So yeah, we're really excited for the rest of the year though. It's going to be absolutely stacked, and it's picking up steam really quickly. And so expect to see some big title fight announcements in the next couple of days because Dana said he's announcing Abu Dhabi pretty soon. He said he's announcing Yair soon. He said he's working on Connor. They're working on a lot of things. So excited for what's happening with the rest of the year. Let's talk about John Jones. The heavyweight division, Jones versus Stipe. Booked for November, MSG, New York City. And Jones has said it's his retirement fight. I'm not sure if that's going to hold up. Maybe they're going to try and convince him into one more and fight Sergey Pavlovich, which I do want to see. But let's just theoretically say Jones and Stipe both retire after November 11th, after UFC 295. What do we see next? Because it's not 100% confirmed, but I'm pretty sure Curtis Blades versus Gelton Almeida is main eventing a fight night in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I expect Gelton Almeida to win that, and I assume the UFC made that matchup expecting Almeida to win that as well. And then Pavlovich is not going to fight booked. He seems to be waiting. He's probably going to be the backup for Jones versus Stipe. And if Jones announces when he wins that, when he retains his belt against Stipe Miocic, which he will, if he announces and says, "Guys, I'm done. I'm retiring," the Brazil Sao Paulo card is the week before, and I think they've done that very deliberately. I think they're going to turn straight around and say, Jones is retired, Stipe's gone, fresh division now, no old names, we're good, full steam ahead. Almeida versus Pavlovich for a vacant title, January or February, bam, go. I don't see Almeida taking that much damage against Blades. Might want to take a bit of time off, but like I can see that. Just turn it straight back around, and then like on fucking fight night, like after Jones is gone, or like the next week, they're just gonna go, okay, Jones is gone, Stipe's gone, vacant title, go. Um, but you do have some other heavyweights, like Garn is fighting Sergey Spivak, and that remains to be seen who's going to win that fight. If it's Spivak, then you probably have to do the loser of Blades versus Almeida, which should be Blades. That would make sense. Um, then Aspinall's fighting Topuria, and I expect him to dominate that fight and not take much damage. So then after that, Aspinall is ranked like number 6, I believe, or number 5, or he could maybe fight Blades in a rematch, or he could fight Spivak again. I doubt that'd happen. Or he could fight Garn, because Garn is fighting in September. If Garn beats Spivak and Aspinall beats Tybura, you do that. Um, if Spivak beats Garn and Aspinall beats Tybura, you do Aspinall versus Blades rematch, and you do Spivak versus like just chill, just wait for Spivak. He can fight fucking Volkov or some shit. And then you kind of figure it out from there. But I can almost call this now. If Almeida beats Curtis Blades later in the year and Jones retires in November, expect to see Sergey Pavlovich fight Jelton Almeida for a vacant title in like February or March 2024. That's what I expect to be seeing. Um, but I'm excited to see it as well. The heavyweight division really should start to kind of unfold. It's got all these new guys here. No old names tied to anyone. The only guy that's tied to old names is Garn. Garn's the only guy that I just don't want to win. Like I want Spivak to beat Garn because then it's like Garn's already lost to Ngannou and he's lost to Jones. Company wise, they don't like the fact that he's lost to Ngannou. That makes it look bad if he ends up becoming the champion. They do not want Garn to become champion, so I now see them making it a lot harder for Surreal Garn to become champion, and they're just going to give him up and comers and shit, and just tougher fights down the rankings. So I could see that happening. Um, but yeah, promotion wise, you want Almeida or Pavlovich or Aspinall as a champion. I think those are the three guys, and I think if you're looking at the heavyweight division in a year or two from now, I think and you look back on the record of champions, I think you see Almeida beat Pavlovich or vice versa, and then you see Aspinall beat them, and then you see the one that lost. Let's say Almeida beats Pavlovich, Aspinall beats Almeida, Pavlovich beats Aspinall, and you just in a fucking repeat cycle shit. Maybe Spivak jumps in and wins it for a time, or maybe like Garn might get it, or something like that. But I think you're just going to see this kind of three-way cycle of Aspinall, Pavlovich and Almeida, because I think they are the future of the heavyweight division, and they are the most skilled guys there and the most diverse and the new blood of heavyweight, which I think is going to cause problems. Like you've got that just power puncher, boxer, absolute like monster on the feet in Pavlovich. You've got that light heavyweight sized like elite jiu-jitsu grappler and stuff, and then you've just got Aspinall who's just solid everywhere. And then you can chuck in Garn as the technical striker, and you can kind of bring in Spivak as the like that judo wrestler kind of guy. Um, and then Paul Blades is just going to be off at like number 5, having to constantly fight like the number 8 guy over and over again, whoever that is, and just keep defending the number 5 guy because they're never going to give Blades a title shot. But also, Khamzat Chimaev, what the fuck is he doing and who's he fighting next? I believe it's going to be Jared Cannonier. Some more shit starting to circulate about that. Apparently, there was something on Instagram or something where someone leaked it that they're like doing research for Hamzat's next opponent, and the people fucking matched up the fucking frames of it and figured out that it was Cannonier. That does also make sense because it's pretty. The Usman fight's looking less likely, and it's looking more likely that Hamzat's a middleweight. You look at middleweight, Costa's booked, Strickland's not going to fight him, Whitaker's going to just lost, Duplessis fighting Izzy, Vittori's taking a fuck ton of time off because he just got put through a blender. I think you've got to be. It's Hamzat versus Cannonier, and I think the winner of that, assuming it's Hamzat, maybe not if it's Cannonier, but the winner of that's probably getting a title shot, maybe an international, not international fight week in UFC 300, maybe. Like ideal scenario would be like Izzy fights either DDP or Strickland in September, Hamzat versus Cannonier in October in Abu Dhabi. Hamzat wins, you do Izzy, and or this could be even better for Izzy because you'd get more fights in. You do Izzy versus Strickland in September, Izzy versus Drickus in like December, and then Hamzat versus Izzy UFC 300, bam, million buys easily. Um, I think that's what you're looking at next. But it's just fucking annoying with Hamza though. He's taken so much time off. Um, so much time off. It's going to be over a year by the time he comes back, and it's just getting annoying. And another guy that's just taking a lot of time off and that's getting very annoying is Conor McGregor. What is Conor doing? Fucking fool of a thing here. I don't know what Conor's doing. He's fucking banging 300 pounders in Miami Heat bathrooms. Like he's weird. He still says he's fighting in December though, which is just interesting because hasn't joined USADA. They're probably going to give him an exemption. But is he going to be fighting Chandler? Is the question. I have a theory. Let me know what you think of this too. Chandler will not fight Conor McGregor. I think what they're gonna do, this is out of left field here. Left lane spotted someone out of left field. I think we could be seeing, hear me out, Islam Makhachev versus Michael Chandler in Abu Dhabi. And because I'll say this why. Alexander Volkanovski just won, said he's getting surgery, said he would probably be okay to fight, but Dana said they're announcing Abu Dhabi soon. So that leads me to believe that they've already got an opponent for Islam Makhachev, and it's not going to be Charles Oliveira because he said he's not going to be ready in October. He's coming back in December. And you know who said they're fighting in December? Conor McGregor. So I think we're going to be seeing Michael Chandler versus Islam Makhachev in October in Abu Dhabi. And I think we're going to be seeing Conor McGregor versus Charles Oliveira in December. I think that's what we're going to see. It might not happen, but I think that could be a little interesting spotting for me. And then what you can do is if somehow Chandler beats Islam Makhachev, you can do Chandler versus Conor for the title. Or you could do Chandler versus Oliveira for the title. But they want Conor to fight for the title. So if Conor is going to fight in December and Chandler's going to fight Islam in October, they're probably just going to say, Conor, here you go, fucking title. Take it. Go. Get a title shot. Because if they can even remotely justify Conor McGregor, who is unranked at lightweight and hasn't fought since July of 2021, if they can somehow find a way to somehow justify him getting a title shot, they will do it. You know, that will sell so many buys. Imagine this. Imagine. Michael Chandler beats Islam Makhachev, stuffs the first few takedowns and just KOs him on the feet somehow. I don't think it'd happen, but it could. And then Conor maybe beats Charles Oliveira in December. He wouldn't, or he fights someone else in December. I don't know. And then Charles Oliveira just waits. You do Conor fight someone in December, or Conor could just wait until fucking next year period and just wait to see what happens. So if Chandler beats Islam, then you do Conor versus Chandler for the title, UFC 300, and then that sells 2 million pay-per-view buys. Conor for the title sells 2 million pay-per-view buys, and Chandler as a champion as well would have a lot more hype behind him than this brown-nosed Chandler that's just sucking up to Conor on tough and just not making any real promotion. I think that's what we could be happening. But those are the main talking points that I've got down. I want to go to some questions now as well. So we're going to go to some questions. Got the first one here. What from Lee Lachlan. What's next for Max after Zombie? Do you think he commits to 155? And if so, how do you see him doing against the top 15? Would love to see him against Oliveira again. Really good question. I've got my lightweight top 15 here, and I'm going to just run through this quickly. I think he beats Favola, beats Ismagulov, beats Moicano, beats Jalen Turner after we saw Dan Hooker fight, beats Dan Hooker. Grant Dawson's tough. If he gets his back taken, he's going to lose. TBA. Beats RDA. Sayukin's tough. Gamrot's tough. Fiziev over 5 rounds, I would say he wins. Fiziev over 3 rounds, I would say he loses. Chandler just relies on him not getting caught with a big shot because Chandler's the one guy that would probably catch his chin. So TBA or TBD, whatever. Benil, I could say could beat on the feet. Just work the wrestling camp purely and stuff takedowns. But this is if he bulks up and really commits, as you said. Justin, I think he would just beat over 5 rounds, just out technique him and just land cleaner shots. Justin, I think he would lose again. Charles, I think he would lose, and Islam, I think he would lose. That was a good question to start off. The next one from the champion has a name. The champion does have a name. What are your thoughts on Elves Brenner? That was an amazing comeback. Reminded me of a Darren Elkins comeback win back in the day. He's beat two pretty high level guys so far, and having Oliveira as his training partner, how far do you think he goes? I love it personally. Also, his name is also Oliveira question mark because his shorts and the cornerman shorts all say Oliveira on them. Yeah, his name's I think his name is actually Elves Oliveira. But Brenner must be some other name or something. But I'm a big fan of Elves Brenner. I was really that fight with Guram was crazy to watch. It was really exciting. Um, I think right now I can't say that he does too well so far, but he definitely has potential, and he showed rapid improvement from the Zubaira Tukhugov fight, which is his debut, to now fighting Guram, who everyone thought was going to be like a top 10 guy. So right now, top 15. I think he could beat Frivola. I think he could beat Demir. I could think he could beat Moicano, and I think he probably loses to. I think he could beat RDA maybe, um, but I think yeah, beats Frivola, Ismagulov, Moicano. Those are all still iffy though. Loses to Turner, loses to Hooker, loses to Dawson, loses to Sayuki and Gamrot, Fazeev, Chandler, Benil, Justin, Dustin, Charles, Islam. But with some work and obviously training with Charles, he seems to be one of their like Charles in the corner as well. Seems like he's one of the more kind of favoured guys over there that they really like. So I could definitely see him doing well. Just build the skill. He's got a chin and a half. He can take shots and he's got some good power back. And he took down Guram as well. So he's got some decent wrestling. I think he's just got to all around just work on his skills. But I could definitely see him in the top 15 next year, year after. And he's not too old either. I think he's like 30. He wouldn't become a champion or a top 5 guy, but I could see him maybe cracking the top 10. But yeah, good question. Next one. If Zabit were to come back to the UFC, how would he do against today's top 15 featherweights? Let me get my featherweight rankings right now. Okay, Zabit. This is assuming we're talking the Zabit that fought like Calvin Cater, and assuming he also has cardio. I'm gonna give like the best possible version of Zabit that I can imagine. I think beats Caceres, beats Barboza. Okay, over. I'm gonna on the ones that matter. I'm gonna determine 3 or 5 rounds. Beats Barboza, beats Caceres, beats Ige, beats Bryce Mitchell, beats Sadiq Yusuf, loses to Evloev, I think gets taken down. Um, beats Giga, beats Zombie, beats Kato again, beats Emmett, loses to Topuria over 5 rounds, possibly scrapes it over 3. I think he could beat Allen regardless. I think he could beat Ortega, loses to Max, loses to Yair, and loses to Volkanovski. But good question. Um, what are your thoughts on Russian fighters getting more Dagestani privilege? Oh, sorry. What are your thoughts on Russian fighters getting more privileges than others in terms of top matchups nowadays? Some people call it Dagestani privilege. Yeah, I did a post about this on my Instagram a while back when the Strickland versus Abbas fight got announced, and also when the Costa Alesco fight got announced, and Umar Sandhagen as well. I featured those 3 fights in there. Um, it definitely is a thing. I think it's like with the management too. I think Ali Abdelaziz has a way of just getting his guys what they want and what's best for them. Um, it's not like a ridiculous thing, and we saw with Abbas it really didn't pay off for him. So in some cases, it's doing them a disservice. It's like when Till got rushed to the title and then got smoked by Woodley, or like Shabazian. Like these aren't Dagestani guys, but it happens sometimes when a prospect or because of now, I think what it is because Khabib and Islam and Umar and all these guys um look really good, and Khabib and Islam were champs or are champs with Islam. Um, then they go like everyone from their camps and everyone from that kind of part is just going to be good automatically. And in some cases, like with Abbas, not true. Aliskerov, I think I also don't actually hate it though because with the case of like Costa's fighting fucking no one. Um, and he's being annoying. So I say, fuck him, just make him fight some unranked guy. Like, it's not completely fair on the other guys that have to work their way through the division, but I don't hate it. Um, how do you see the careers of the current champions going? Who do you think will have the most success overall? That's from Couch Cog. Um, current champions, really good question. I'll just do men's champs. I'll go from heavyweight to flyweight. John Jones, I think he fights Stipe and retires. If not, I think he fights Sergey. If he wins, retires. If he loses, they'll probably give him a rematch, and then regardless of the rematch result, he'll retire. Light heavyweight Jamal Hill, I can see him beating Yair. Um, so I say one more title defense, and then I think he would lose to Ankalaev, he would lose to Pereira, he would lose to Jan Blachowicz, I believe. Um, but it depends. I like Jamal Hill, but I don't think he matches up too well with a lot of the guys at light heavyweight. Then you got middleweight. I think Izzy wins, beats Strickland if he fights him next, or Dricus is actually tough. I might talk about this later on, like in another video, but I genuinely think Dricus has a good chance to beat Izzy. I think Izzy is so pissed off at him, and just so worked up about all this shit that he could just not fight at his best. He could fight at his best and channel it with his fucking anime energy, but he also might not. So I think, regardless, Strickland or DDP, or just one of them, and then fights Khamzat, I think he loses the belt as soon as he fights Khamzat and doesn't win it back. Once he loses the belt again, unless it's to somehow DDP, then I think he could beat him in a rematch. But if he fights Khamzat, he loses. So I see Izzy getting 2 title defenses more max, and then I think he'll retire after he loses. Welterweight, I think Leon, I think he can beat Colby, but I think he will lose, and I think he'll beat Bilal, but I think he would lose to Shavkat. I think he would lose to those kind of guys in the future. I think he could lose to Jack Della Maddalena in like a year's time. So I think Leon gets 2 more title defenses and then loses the belt. I think Islam Makhachev, as much as it pains me to admit it, will probably beat Charles Oliveira. If my out of field idea of Michael Chandler comes true, I think he'll probably win that fight just with fight IQ. Um, so I can see Islam getting 2 to 3 more title defenses. If he loses to Oliveira, which I really want to happen, or loses to Volk, maybe. So two more title defenses, 2 or 3, and then I think he either goes up to welterweight or just retires because he like Khabib. Volk, I don't see him losing at featherweight until he's like 38. I don't see Volk losing at featherweight. I feel like it's really up to Volk how his featherweight career goes. I think he beats Topuria, he beats Evloev, he beats Arnold Allen, like he beats all these featherweight guys. He beats Aljo moving up. I don't see anyone on the horizon that could beat Volk. Um, I just see maybe like in like 4 years, 3 years time, age catches up to him, or he just leaves featherweight and just says, "You guys have a go." I think Volk's going to retire with like 9 featherweight title defenses if he wants to. Um, Bantamweight, I see Sterling submitting O'Malley, and then I see him moving up to featherweight and losing, and then just becoming a contender at featherweight. Flyweight, I see Pantoja beating Roval. I see him beating Moreno in a rematch. I think Pantoja could have a lot of success. It's really competitive. I think like you could beat Manel Cap, you could beat Parker France. I'm a big fan of Pantoja, so I want to say he does well. And then women's champs Grasso, one defense, she'll lose to Blanchfield, and then Wei Lee could do well. Wei Lee could have a few more defenses, and she's not old either, so I could see Wei Lee doing quite well. But really good question. This one's from Ethan Mishiffin. Um, got quite a few questions here, so I'll just go through them all quickly. Okay, I'll read the whole thing. From lightweight to heavyweight, what current fighters do you think would sell the most pay-per-views? I think lightweight Oliveira, welterweight Colby, middleweight Izzy, light heavyweight Yair probably, and heavyweight Jones. Um, how do you predict Jones' career goes down? Pete Stipe retires. Who do you think Izzy fights in Sydney? Dricus du Plessis or Sean Strickland? Who Khamzat fights next? Cannonier. Who do you think Islam fights next? Either Charles Volk or Michael Chandler. Um, Volk rematch potentially. Charles winner. Dustin. No, it won't be Dustin winner. They'll have too much damage. What do you think happens to the next 2 or 3 of those guys? Winner of Dustin versus Justin probably fights like I don't know. Who would winner loser of Dustin? Dustin will fight like a Gamrot or a Sayukin or something. Winner could fight like Michael Chandler. Maybe Oliveira. I don't know. What do you think happens to the next 2 of those guys? Don't get a strap in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, whatever. Um, Agree. And finally, I want to know how do you think the rest of Conor's career unfolds before he officially calls it quits? I think Conor will have 3 more fights in the UFC. I think he will fight. I think if he fights Michael Chandler, he will get KO'd. I think if he fights Charles Oliveira, he will get submitted. The guy and then I think they'll just give him a really easy fight. If they're just trying to really give him like they just jump him in and go Oliveira or Chandler, he'll lose. If they go, okay, let's just give you an easier fight, like a like if they do Ferguson versus McGregor, he'll win that. But yeah, I think two or three more fights for Conor max, and then he'll call it quits either late next year or early 2025. Good questions though. What retired current/retired fighting style do you think would be the most effective in a street fight or fight to the death, gladiator type situation? Um, if you're looking at who out of everyone in the UFC who would win in a street fight, you're looking at like Sergey Pavlovich or like Jones or something. But if you're looking at like or Ngannou, whatever, um, but if you're looking at the style, what would be the best for a street fight? It's probably like yeah, again, still like just the style. If you're not including power, um, then you got to say just like kind of Jones, just the way he does shit, like clean boxing. Like in a street fight, you're looking at just clean boxing, in close shit, elbows and stuff. So like prime Ferguson, I could see being effective in a street fight. But yeah, interesting question. Okay, how do you think these matchups play out? Prime Ferguson versus Prime Oliveira. I think Oliveira gets a fourth round. If it's 5 rounds, I think Oliveira gets a fourth round submission. If it's 3 rounds, he just wins the decision like he did when they fought. Prime Ferguson versus Makachev. Makachev probably gets like an arm triangle like he did with Charles, just Ferguson being too weird. But Prime Ferguson had cardio for days and he had a chin. So I didn't see Makachev dropping him. It could go distance. I'd say Makachev probably decision. Prime Makachev versus Prime Khabib. Khabib would win. He's better in the grappling, I believe. Um, just so much stronger, I think. And I don't think Khabib would get like dropped on the feet. And then Prime Khabib versus Prime Ferguson. As much as it pains me to say, Khabib would win. Good matchups though. This next game from KOed Gaming. You can only watch one weight class for the rest of your life. Who are you picking, or what weight class are you picking? Um, geez, that's tough. It's between bantamweight and lightweight, to be honest. Like people are gonna say it's like a casual statement to say lightweight, but if you look at it, that's just the most fun, exciting matchups. But it's that or bantamweight probably. In terms of the skill level, I'd say bantamweight, but there's just so many fighters in lightweight, just well known guys. Um, Next one from Roger Rodriguez. Will we ever see another highlight reel maker like Anderson Silva again? Or is the skill level simply way too competitive for such a thing to occur? Well, I mean, Sean O'Malley, when he was fighting Cans, was pretty much Anderson Silva. It won't happen at the top level. You won't see a champion like just putting highlight reel KOs on people. Um, it wouldn't be like no, you won't see a champion doing flashy shit, like flashy highlight reel KOs. I think the guy that could put together a highlight reel as a champion would be Sergey Pavlovich with just KOs, but they wouldn't be like highlight reel fucking spinning kicks or front kicks and shit like that or evading punches. Yeah, the skill level is too high now. The contenders, everyone's like well rounded enough to not just get dominated in one area usually, and if it is, then it's in the wrestling. No one really gets just absolutely schooled on the feet like it's Volk. If you look at it in terms of who wants to champions that are putting on dominant performance and just making the contenders look like they don't belong in there, then it's Volk. But um, yeah, no one's gonna be like just putting absolute like ridiculous spinning kick KOs on contenders. That's not gonna happen. Um, Next one for Master Blaster. Can you matchmake the entire top 10 of the light heavyweight division? Feel like it's gotten a bit wrecked since a bit stagnant since you wrecked his shoulder. Yeah, good question. That's interesting. Light heavyweight division, got that here. Yeah. Um, this is audio, so you're not even gonna be able to fucking see it. But top like 11ish is Jamal Hill, Yuri Prohaska, Magomed Ankalaev, Jan Blachowicz, Alexander Rakic, Johnny Walker, Nikita Krylov, Anthony Smith, Volkan Ozdemir, Paul Craig, Ryan Spann, Azamat Mirzakhanov. So my job isn't that difficult because Hill is going to be fighting Yuri next. Ankalaev doesn't have an opponent. Blachowicz is fighting Pereira. Rakic, Walker, and Krylov don't have opponents. Smith's fighting Spann, Ozdemir's fighting Mirzakhanov, and Paul Craig's down at middleweight. So, I pretty much only have to matchmake Ankalaev, Rakic, Walker, and Krylov. So you can do that really any way you want. I can see. I don't mind. I think Krylov versus Ankalaev, Walker versus Rakic could be a thing, or you do Rakic versus Ankalaev, Walker versus Krylov. Um, but yeah, good question. I think when you asked these questions were asked like a week ago. So a few of these weren't made and it wasn't confirmed. Like Smith and Span and all that. But yeah, still good question. You can really do those for any way you want. Next one. How far do you think Rinat Fakredinov makes it at welterweight? I think Rinat Fakredinov can make it pretty far at welterweight. I think he can be like a top 10 guy. Um, his striking looks really good. He's got power. He's clearly got grappling. So yeah, I could see him top 10 fighter. Um, two questions. How do you think Corey Sandhagen and Peter Yan would do against the top 10 fighters at featherweight? And then also, what each champion needs to do to be the divisional GOAT? And you put e.g. Izzy needs 4 more defenses. Um, I'll do the first one, the first question first. So I've got my featherweight top 15 here. Um, Corey Sandhagen, I'll do him first. Top 10. I'll just do top 15 for you. Beats Caceres, beats Barboza, beats Ige, beats Mitchell, beats Yusuf, beats Evloev, beats Giga, beats Zombie, beats Cater, beats Emmett. Taporia's tough. I'd say he probably loses. Beats Allen, beats Ortega. Max is actually really close. I could see him beating Max. That is a really fucking close fight. I want to see that. Um, Yair again is also really close. I'd say maybe loses, and then he loses to Volk. And then with Peter Yan, um, beats Caceres, Barboza, Ige, Mitchell, Yusuf, Evloev. I could see Evloev just marabbing him. Beats Giga, or got to think size though. Beats Zombie, beats Cater. I think he would just make Emmett look silly, but fucking hell, that's a dangerous fight for him. Loses to Topuria, beats Allen in my opinion, but geez, this for Corey it's not as bad because Corey's a tall, long guy, so he's kind of got that Max Holloway build anyway. But for Peter Yan, this is some big size advantage, big size disadvantage. Loses to Topuria. Um, Allen's really close. I think he'd beat Ortega, loses to Max, loses to Yair, and loses to Volk. But him versus Max will be sick to watch. And then also, we got a second question. What do you think each champion needs to do to be the divisional GOAT? All right, heavyweight, Jones. I don't know the exact title defense records for all of them, but I'll just go off my head. Jones would need 2 more. He'd need to beat Stipe. He's going to get called the GOAT by the UFC if he just beats Stipe. But in my opinion, he would need to beat Stipe and then beat Pavlovich. And if he wanted to cement heavyweight GOAT, beat one other guy. But that won't happen. Light heavyweight, no point. Jamal Hill, he's not going to get fucking 20 defenses. Um, Middleweight, Izzy, I would say, I think Silva off the top of my head has 10 title defenses. It could be 11 though. Izzy right now, he had 5, I believe, because he defended against Costa, Costa, Vittori, Whitaker, Cannonier. Costa, Vittori, Whitaker, Cannonier. Oh, and Romero. Romero, Costa, Whitaker. So he had 5, lost to Pereira, won it back. So he's a 2-time champion. He would need to beat Strickland. Um, for divisional GOAT status, he'd need to beat Strickland, DDP, and then I think he'd need to beat Khamzat, to be honest. Welterweight, again, no point. Edwards isn't going to surpass GSP. Lightweight, Makachev would need. So right now he's got 1 title defense. He would need at least 3 title defenses, so 2 or 3 more. And better performances too, because Khabib's beat Connor, Justin, and Dustin as his defenses, and won the belt off fucking Ally Quinta. So Makachev, he's already ahead so far. He won the belt off Oliveira, and then defended against Volk. So if Islam defends against Oliveira, Chandler, like those like 2 or 3 more, he's probably there. Volk, I think he's there personally, but to cement it, 2 more. Bantamweight, Aljamain Sterling. I think if he beats Sean O'Malley, he's arguably there. If he's not going to stick around, but if he wanted to probably cement it, because I know a lot of people just hate on him, and they're going to say that like him winning the belt wasn't winning. But like I think in my eyes, the second fight against Yan was him winning the title, and then the Dillashaw fight was 1 defense, and the Cejudo fight was 2 defenses. So officially he has 3 defenses, but in my eyes he only has 2. Beats O'Malley, he has 3 officially. He could be there honestly. I think and then flyweight, there's no point. No one's gonna surpass DJ. But really good question. Um, Next one. How do you see a matchup between Ilia Topuria and these 3 bantamweights? Song Yadong 3 rounds, Rob Font 5 rounds, and Peter Yan 3 rounds. I'm going to assume that you mean, if you mean stylistically, that's different. But if you mean the bantamweight's going up, because Topuria, I don't think Topuria wouldn't make bantamweight. So if you're saying the bantamweight's going up, I think Peter Yan loses. He takes too long to get going, and then Topuria just puts damage on him. I think Rob Font, I think Topuria would beat as well. And then Song Yadong over 3 rounds is tough. Song Yadong's not a small guy. I think Topuria would still win. So I think Topuria would win all 3 of those matchups, but close. The Yarn fight and the Song fight are close. I think he beats Font pretty easily, though. Next one. Is the lightweight division really the most stacked division? Seems like Gaethje, Poirier are in a place, Islam and Charles are in a place, and the rest of the division is kind of dead. So that's kind of what I was saying before with the levels. With Chandler, Poirier, Gaethje holding the positions for dear life. It's the most stacked in terms of name value, but it's not the most stacked in terms of competitive matchups, if that's what you kind of mean. And in mine, I think bantamweight's more fun right now. But I get it. I get what you mean. Next one. What is the biggest what could have been moment in UFC? For example, if Jan had never need Aljo, if Dom Reyes had actually got the decision, e.g., I know these are recent examples. Yeah, good question. What if moments? I'll just list off a few. It's hard to kind of go the biggest one. What if Cejudo didn't retire initially? What if Zabit never left? What if Conor never boxed Floyd? What if Masvidal didn't land the knee? You're kind of looking at these kind of things. What if Demetrius Johnson didn't leave the UFC? That's a big one. Or what if cancel out at Masvidal not landing the knee? What if they never made the trade for Askren and DJ? That's one. I think that's one of the bigger ones. Yeah. What if Khabib never retired and went up to welterweight or something like that? You're looking at those kind of things. But yeah, your examples are pretty good. If Dom Reyes has fucking won the decision, that would have been really big. Um, Next one. Could you see Ilia Topuria as a long reigning champion like Aldo, Holloway, and Volk? Any fighters? Could you see any fighters being a problem for him like Allen or Evloev? Um, oh yeah, fuck. Ilia Topuria though. The thing with him is I don't see him getting the belt until he's like 28 or 30. So by then he's going to be closer to his prime. Everyone else is going to improve too, but stylistically, I think Yair could be a problem for him. I think Max would be tough for him. Evloev, we haven't really seen someone really offensively grapple against him that much. Mitchell did take him down though, so that's a worry. But I wouldn't see him being a long rating. I could see him maybe getting like 3 defenses, but not like 6 or 7. Um, Next one. What do you think about Shavkat versus Colby? Colby has a solid chin and elite wrestling to make it phenomenal. That would be a really fun fight. 3 rounds, I'll go Shavkat. 5 rounds, I'll go Colby until we see Shavkat's cardio hold up over 5 because he's never fought a 5 rounder. How do people with such good body and head movement get brutally knocked out like Edgar and Cruz, but yet stationary people like Strickland and Izzy and Pereira don't get KO'd like that? Well, I mean, Pereira got KO'd, and Strickland's been KO'd before too. But I get what you mean. What happens is, I'll tell you, Frankie Edgar and Dominic Cruz. I assume you're talking about, for Frankie Edgar, it's the Sandhagen KO and the Gutierrez KO. And then for Cruz, you're talking about the Vera KO. So what it is because they've got such good movement and they're moving around and they're like shifting their positioning. When a fighter can make the read of them ducking in or doing like that's what you saw with Vera. Vera put the cross straight into, and he knew Cruz was dipping one way to the cross, so he threw the head kick behind it and just pretty much intercepted his head movement. So that's what happens. Same with Edgar and Sandhagen or Edgar and Gutierrez. They figured out when his head was coming forward, and then they timed it with knees. So that's what you're saying. And then with Izzy and Strickland and stuff, they don't get KO'd as much, like flatlined, because I mean they can if you set them up, like if you figure out reads on them too, but because they don't like do as much jerky movements and stuff and really obvious patterns and stuff, like they're just very kind of existing. They're like their movements very continuous with his crews will have the same reaction to a cross every time. Like he'll slip across the same way. And that's what Vera figured out. But Izzy, it's because he holds at range. He's not a pressure fighter, and he doesn't do big head movements. That's pretty much it. When you don't move your head into a punch, the KO is not going to be as bad. That's the simplest way to explain it. But an interesting question. Um, Next one. How would prime featherweight Conor stack up against today's featherweight division? I'll go through it quickly. Loses to Volk, loses to Yair, loses to Max. I'm talking about all these current versions. I could see him beating Ortega, maybe. Maybe beats Allen, loses to Topuria. I could probably see him beating Emmett, just outclass him and catch him because he was quick in his prime. Beats Cater, beats Zombie. Giga would be interesting with the kicks. I could see Evloev maybe being a problem for him. Beats Yusuf, beats Mitchell, beats Ige, beats Barboza, beats Caceres. Good question. What weight class has the best top 5 fighters in the UFC? Okay, I'll go over that now really quickly. Flyweight, Pantoja, Moreno, Figgy, El Bazi, Royval. Bantamweight, Eljo, Marab, O'Malley, Cejudo, Sanhagen. Featherweight, Volk, Yair, Max, Ortega, Allen. Lightweight, Islam, Charles, Justin, Dustin, Benil. Welterweight, Leon, Usman, Colby, Bilal, Khamzat. Middleweight, Izzy, Pereira, DDP, Rob, Cannonier. Light heavyweight, Hill, Yuri, Yarn, Ankalaev, Rakic. Heavyweight, Jones, Pavlovich, Khan, Stipe, and Blades. It's between bantamweight, featherweight, and lightweight, and maybe welterweight. It's those kind of four. If I had to pick one, I'll probably go bantamweight, to be honest. Good question. Pound for pound, funniest fighters tier list. Pound for pound, fuck. I mean, pound for pound, Derek Lewis, he's got all the pounds. You're looking at like Lewis. I find Strickland funny. Lewis, Strickland. Who else? Like Connor in his prime, like when he was good at trash talking, was funny. Um, who else is like funny? I do not find Colby funny at all. Um, yeah, those kind of guys. Like there are some funny guys. That are like Pavlovich. I like Pavlovich. Pavlovich has a good sense of humor. I think he's funny. Thoughts on Sean Strickland's worldviews? Incredibly based. W opinions. No, I'm kidding. Strickland said some fucking questionable shit. I'll be real, but I mean, he's real. You got to respect it. Like he's saying what he thinks. He's not being fake, so you can't hate him for it. But yeah, I don't agree with everything he says, but he actually has some good points. Um, does Madalena have a weakness? His striking ability within the UFC seems unbeatable. Yeah, his weakness is grappling. His takedown defense probably is the thing that we've seen him struggle with. He got taken down by Ramazan Ameev. But yeah, striking wise, I don't see anyone except for maybe Wonderboy beating him, and even that he could win. But yeah, his striking and his power is a problem. So if you're gonna beat Della Madalena, you got to wrestle. Um, do you have a top 10 UFC favorite fighter list? No particular order. Volk, Charles, Pavlovich, Song Yadong, Gilbert Burns, Yuri Prohaska, Jelton Almeida, um, Jamal Hill, did I say Hamzat? Who else? Corey Sandhagen, those kind of guys. Yeah. No particular order, but my top 5 is Charles, Volk, Pavlovich, Song Yadong, Gilbert Burns. That's my top 5. Um, Prime Tony versus Prime Oliveira. Oliveira. Prime Khabib versus Prime Woodley. That's tough. I'll lean Khabib. And how would Khabib do at 170 currently if he never decided to move up? Um, Khabib at 170 currently. I'll go the rankings off the top of my head. Beats Leon. Oh, Colby's close. Beats Colby. Loses to Usman. Prime Usman loses to. Prime Khabib would beat this version of Usman. Loses to Hamzat. Hamzat's too big and strong. Burns I could see being an issue. Shavkat I could see being an issue. Beats Thompson. Beats Bilal. Beats Jeff Neal. He beats most of them. I think the guys that could beat him would be Hamzat, Usman, maybe Colby and Burns. Those are the 4 tough ones for him. Yeah. And Leon, I think he would beat. Um, whose performance against Tony was more impressive, Justin or Charles? I'll say Charles. Justin outstruck him and just put hands on him. But a lot of people did kind of think that Justin had the striking advantage in terms of the power, and Tony on the striking hadn't looked as good as he was. And he also Tony dropped Justin in that matchup, but Charles versus Tony was like Charles just dominated 30-26 the whole time, absolutely smoked him. So I'd say Charles probably. Um, who will win if all the Bellator champs face the fifth ranked fighter in the UFC in their respective divisions? The matchups would be Sergio Pettis versus Peter Yan. I'll take Peter Yan. Patrici Pitbull versus Ilia Topuria. I'll take Pitbull. Or oh fuck, that's close. Not really sure. Usman Nurmagomedov versus Michael Chandler. I'll go Usman. Yaroslav Amosov versus Gilbert Burns. I love Burns, so I'll lean with him. It's just hard to kind of gauge how skillful like the fighters that these Bellator guys are fighting, and in comparison. Um, Johnny Eblen versus Paulo Costa. Johnny Eblen would win. Costa doesn't take his career seriously. Vladimir Nemkov versus Nikita Krylov. I'd probably lean Nemkov, but Krylov is actually really underrated. And then Ryan Bader versus Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall would win. And then you've put Liz Carmouche versus Jessica Andrade. I don't care. Fucking Carmouche, because Andrade would run in with her chin up and get KO'd. Next question. What does the future hold for Song Yadong? Personally, I see him becoming a champ before 30. He's so young already and is already so good. Who does he beat and lose to in the top 10? Yeah, as I said before, I'm a big fan of Song Yadong. I think he could be a champ. Um, I think he I think he could beat Aljo. I think he has the style to beat Marab, but we haven't seen him enough yet. I think he beats Sean O'Malley. I think he beats Cejudo. That could be interesting. Um, I think he loses to Corey in a rematch, but really close. I think this version of Jan, I could see him beating. Beats Font, beats Cruz, beats Munoz, and then Umar, I'm gonna have to see him fight Sandhagen before. Right now, I say Song, but if Umar smoked Sandhagen, then I'll say Umar. Good question though. Do you think John can really get past Sergey at his age right now? Like I know John has a huge grappling advantage, but what if Sergey lands on him before he attempts a takedown? That's what I'm saying, and that's why I wanted to see this over the Stipe fight because it just carries way less intrigue to me. Um, but yeah, I think he could win. We do see Sergey's got grappling weaknesses against Overeem, but he might have fixed them, and he's training at AKA now with Khabib and all that. So he could be like a beast with the grappling now. We don't know. But I do for sure think that out of everyone on the heavyweight roster right now, in every single promotion that exists, Sergey's the toughest fight for John Jones. Um, Next one. If you could combine two fighters into one, taking the best out of each of them, who would you take to create to be the perfect fighter? I thought about Khabib plus Alex Pereira, perfect everywhere, I agree. Or maybe Khamzat plus Ngannou, that would be a next level bulldozer. That would be absolutely terrifying. Imagine like just Khamzat's wrestling and strength combined with Ngannou's like size and then like power on the feet. Um, in terms of the best, yeah, you're probably spot on with Khabib and Pereira. I just want to come up with something dumb, like something just funny, um, or like there would be just a really cool fighter. Um, bruh, who Colby and Ngannou. Colby and Ngannou would be ridiculous because if Colby had power with the output he throws and the cardio, if Colby kept the cardio that he has and could also like actually knock people out, he'd be terrifying. Um, and as always, the fantasy matchups: Prime Silver versus Izzy. Oh fucking hell. I'll go. It's close. It's hard to gauge how good like Silver's opponents are. And, like, he's obviously really good. Don't get me wrong, but the sport's evolved so much. I'll have to go with Izzy. Pereira versus Romero. The unstoppable force versus the immovable object. I'll go with Pereira. I like Romero's chin is really good, but I think Pereira just is different. And no, Romero has been KO'd before, and he's just not as good on the feet. But the wrestling. Fuck. Yeah, if Pereira has takedown defense, he would win, but striking, he tears him apart. Prime Tony versus Prime Oliveira. I'll go Oliveira. Cruz versus Sandhagen. That's a fight that a lot of people wanted to see. I'll go Sandhagen. I think he would figure him out and do him like he did Edgar, or do him like Vera did Cruz. And then Ngannou versus DC. DC would win. Ngannou got taken down by Cyril Gane. Um, how would Yair versus Charles go at lightweight? That's really interesting. After seeing Volk versus Yair, Not to say that Charles is a better striker than Volk. I don't think he is. But I believe the size advantage and the strength with the grappling. I think Charles would get takedowns. We've seen Charles offensively wrestle before against like Ferguson. I think Charles would take him down. Next one. What division have the lowest average skill level? I mean, it's heavyweight. Like pound for pound, it's heavyweight. But in heavyweight and light heavyweight, the heavyweight classes are just less skilled. Um, and then that's all the questions done for today, guys. So that's the podcast. This is the first time I've done this. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed it, leave some other questions in the comments for the next one. I'm thinking of doing this like um probably after every pay per view and maybe one in between if there's like some big fight announcements. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one.